Well, howdy, all you collector car fans out there. This is once again Jason, the owner and founder of Southern Bush Motorsports. Boy, have I got a tales from the bush for you today. That picture right there, they told me that car was there. They told me it was a real CUDA, real AAR. Nobody had ever gotten a picture of it. The brother died. The other brother didn't like him, and the car sat there rotten, wouldn't sell it. And I'll tell you what, that dog started howling, and two other Rottweilers came running. But I stood on top of my close as I could to the top of my van to get a picture, and I got it. So that was a picture that was supposedly never going to happen. So this one's called Mopars in the Mist. I got a call from a friend of mine that lived in Pennsylvania. He said there was an old hermit out here in Pennsylvania, out there in Pennsylvania, that had a bunch of cars, just a ton of cars, but you couldn't get near them because he lived in a house that was half condemned, half the house had collapsed. It was a house he grew up in, a lot of family issues, in the middle of an Amish community, which they didn't want him there because he was not Amish. And it was just a really weird situation, but I'll tell you what, they warned me. This is the area. I mean, I took this picture off of Getty Images, but that's the area that I was in, all Amish country. Never been up there before, so doing my due diligence and doing what I usually do, I went out to the area, and I went to a local diner and kind of hung out there for a while and started asking around, and everybody knew who the crazy old coot was. I probably spent 2 or 3 hours at that diner, and they all warned me, don't go out there, the guy's crazy as hell. I'd probably come out with a shotgun. And I decided to take my chance. I went out there, walked up to the property slowly, and sure as hell, he came out. Didn't have a shotgun with him, but he certainly wasn't happy. And I took a different approach. I had a feeling that the reason why everyone thought he was so crazy is because nobody ever got the time to talk to him. His nickname was Mr. Stinky, because he had no running water in his house. So I got to talk to him and told him what I was doing, and I was in the business and serious about it. But before I even wanted to see his cars, I said, you want to go into town and get something to eat at that diner or something? And he was all happy about that. He got a chance to ride in a nice vehicle, and boy, that guy stunk. Let me tell you, he stunk. Jesus. But we went out to this diner, and when I walked in, everybody was like, oh, there's Mr. Stinky. He never comes into town. After we ate, I said, hey, man, when's the last time you went and saw a movie? I've been on the road for like 2 months now. Let's go watch a movie and get some popcorn and that. So we did that, and next thing you know, he's like, you want to see some of my outside cars? I said to him, so there's outside cars and inside cars? He goes, yeah, well, you probably won't see the inside cars. And nice GTO there. So I call this Mopars in the Mist because it was crazy. It was all farmland around him. I ended up having to stay out there for a couple of days because he had over 100 cars. And when I woke up in the morning, I got out of my van, I was like, wow, there's like mist everywhere. And he said that happens every day because of all the farm property around him and all the stuff they're growing. But he had some crazy cool cars out there. The Dodge Challengers. He had no rhyme to reason. He just collected what he collected, and it was all local cars. Who would have known that Amish people even had these cars out there? But that's a completely untouched car right there. They still had cigarettes in the ashtray. It was just insane. Some of the cars were a little rough, but the ones that were rough were the ones, that's an RT Challenger right there. The ones that were rough were the ones that, were worth, I think that was a 72 Challenger right there, but it was a 340 car. But it was just insane what this guy collected. There's that GTO, and there might be another GTO, but there's that GTO again. But his dad and his brother had passed away, or his dad had passed away, his brother was still alive. And they had collected these cars together. Actually, while I was out there, I guess the town had talked, and his brother showed up, and he's like, what are you doing out on our property, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm with your brother, and we're looking at his cars and stuff, and that was just a Brian Green Challenger right there. And his brother was a little bit ticked, because I guess I had talked to him, the hermit guy, more than his own brother had in the past 10 years. But look at that untouched car right there. That 72 340 Challenger again. But it was a weird property. It looks like that used to be a farm, and he had this big overhang where they used to keep hay. No super rare classic cars here or anything, but some cool stuff. There's just so much work trying to get near this guy and trying to get him to open up again. He wouldn't tell me where the other cars were, and there's a nice scar like there, and you can see trees are built up around it, and cars are buried, and they sunk into the dirt, and it was a mess out there. Cars have been sitting there for so long that there's him and his brother. It's crazy. That was such a long time ago. No super rare cars, but definitely pretty solid, complete cars out there, and it was 100% worth the trip. But there was just stuff all over the place. That was another RT Challenger. That was a 383 car, if I remember right. The cool thing about this guy is once I got to know him a little bit, you can't really see that, but I think that was a Roadrunner. Pretty sure that was a Roadrunner. There's that same Challenger. That wasn't an RT, but that one was a 383 car, if I remember right. There's such cool stuff out there. And it looks like a Challenger Perry. Look at all what that car. That's called kudzu. It was brought over from Japan back in the early 1900s and kind of took over the United States. And it just wraps itself around everything. It's really bad up in Pennsylvania. And as you can see, it just wraps itself around the cars. So in a minute here, we're going to get into some of the cars that were in the overhang. He wasn't excited about me taking pictures in there. He didn't say I couldn't, but he just wasn't really excited about me taking pictures because he's a pretty private person, and he never sold any of the cars. But when it got down to it, I could get him to finally sell a few of the cars, and I did get a few off here. But I was the first one into this property. He told me I was the first one that had ever actually come and spent some time with him. And he ran everybody off. He didn't let anybody else take pictures of cars or buy any cars because they were all just out there to cars when all you had to do was just talk to this guy. Look at that baby right there, buried in kudzu. So really the biggest thing is this guy wouldn't let anyone around because nobody really wanted to talk to him. They just, when somebody heard about the cars, you couldn't see them from the road. They were way, way back on this guy's property. So somebody would have had to have told you about these cars. Look at that big old monster right there, completely untouched. The original hubcaps were still on that thing. I wanted that thing. I just didn't have a purpose for it, and my trailer couldn't haul it. There's a guy that was checking his mail. I happened to walk out on the street just so I could check out the area, and he didn't like me standing there in the middle of his neighborhood. Check that car out. That was across the street. The old Hermit said, don't even bother going to SS396. Been sitting there since 1978. Now we're getting into the overhang. I finally got him to let me get in there. It's a 69 Charger. This overhang was massive. It's a 7340 Challenger Sublime Green. And it was funny because when I was looking at this car, I opened up the door of the car and I'm like, what's that on the floor? And he goes, oh, that's Speckles. I was wondering where that cat went. He said, I lost that cat probably 5 years ago. And it turned out that it crawled up through the hole in the floor and its collar got stuck, and, well, good old Speckles didn't make it. But it was an untouched car. There was nothing done to that car, but it was rough. It was really, really rough. Like, it was savable, but you would definitely need some deep pockets to save that one. Look at that Barracuda sitting right beside it. There was old Speckles' bones right there. I mean, I hate to see that happened to a cat, but wow, yeah, that was his cat. Yeah, it was kind of gross seeing that old cat carcass. You can see, car's completely untouched. Nothing been done to it. He didn't really have stories for any of the cars out there. They were just out there. And like I said, he was a little weird about me taking pictures inside of this overhang building. It looked like one of those buildings that you would store hay in. But, you know, it was a real 340 car, and everything was there. There was a lot of cars out there, the Chargers, there were probably about 10 Chargers out there. But, you know, it was really tough getting close to this guy and getting him to open up. He said there was more cars, and if I came back, he'd, you know, let me see them. Look in the background there. You see those cars back there? Tractors and all that? It was so hard to get pictures, but, you know, I did what I could. But for some reason, this car was so bloody crusty. Rusty crusty. He had some crazy cool cars out there. There was actually a Judge out there, a 69 GTO Judge, but he wouldn't let me take pictures of that. I didn't really get any insight if there was a story behind it or not, but the reason I'm showing a lot of these pictures of this Challenger is because it was the only one he had no problem with me taking pictures of. It was the weirdest thing, but you know how rough that is. But completely untouched. One of the biggest problems on here was mice. Mice or rats, whatever you want to call them. They were all over the place, and they had gotten into all of these cars. They had done so much damage that I don't know why mice and rats always get into wiring harnesses, but I think that's an old Polaris there. You can see that Chevelle sitting beside it. And this overhang could probably, I think it was about 4 cars deep. Look at that Impala. Completely untouched. There's a convertible beside it. I think it went about 4 cars deep, and he had one hanging out on each side. This car, I can't remember what this car was, but this was a grocery getter, and this was a completely untouched car. Obviously, it's a four-door. It's not a super rare classic car. It's not something you collect, but this is a four-door too. But the coolest thing about the cars that this guy had is they were all completely untouched, unrestored. And he had some pretty cool cars out there. In all, I think there's probably pretty close to 90 to 100 cars out there. But I got a feeling that there was a lot more cars. He just wasn't letting me see them. Like, look at just stacked everywhere. And super solid cars. Except for that Challenger, most of the cars out there were super solid. That's a weird looking car, but I just loved it because it was so untouched. He said it ran and drove just fine. He had just never driven it. He had started it up and brought it back there. Look at that Chevrolet. You see it's another car in front of it, convertible beside it. Stuff packed everywhere. It was insane. Well, thanks for coming by and checking another Tales from the Bush. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out. And there's also a link to our Patreon page. If you could help me out, that would be great to keep me going. Keep on coming back.